thank you for having us. I'm a former University of Illinois Springfield graduate, so I spent 3 or 4 years living in Springfield, so I'm kind of familiar with the area. Thank you for hosting us tonight. We're happy to come down and share what we've been doing and hopefully take back from you guys what's been working in your community and see what we can do to continue to strengthen neighborhoods. As the Community Development Department of the City of Peoria, we've only been the Community Development Department for about 1.5 years now. Historically, before that, we were 3 separate departments. We had an inspections department, a planning and growth department, and an economic development department. And while for the most part things got done under that setup with budget cuts that municipalities faces, we realized that we needed to deliver services differently and more efficiently. So part of that meant coming together as a community development department. And now the community development department is made up of 5 different divisions: the code enforcement division, the building inspection division, the planning and growth division, the economic development division, and our neighborhoods and grants division. Kind of coming together as one department has really allowed us to focus on certain issues that affect different neighborhoods from a whole development, neighborhood building approach. I mean, I think everyone can agree here how important your neighborhood is to you. And as the city of Peoria, when we see our neighborhoods, and we know each neighborhood has a different identity and they want different services from the city of Peoria. So us coming together to be housed under one department has really allowed us to deliver those services better and work much closer together than we have previously. Instead of a citizen coming in and needing to talk to one department and another department, if you're looking to develop or you're looking to do certain activities in your neighborhood, you just come into our development center and you can have access to all those functions within the city of Peoria. So we're kind of going to tonight get into a little deeper on some of the programs and services we're kind of doing in Peoria to hopefully you can take something away from it. If you have any questions at the end, we're going to spend quite a bit of time focusing on your questions. If you have any follow-up after this, you want to get in contact with any of the 4 of us, we'd be happy to have a phone conversation or have another sit-down discussion with you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Shannon, and she's going to kind of go a little further on some of the planning activities we're undertaking.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the history in Peoria of neighborhood revitalization, where we've been and where we're currently at. In 2008, there was a city committee that was tasked with, they created a concept for the school neighborhood impact zone. The school district was looking at creating community 2 new schools, community learning centers, and as part of that, the city and this committee rallied alongside that to focus on a 2-block radius for each of the new community learning centers to focus city services, programs, infrastructure improvement. So while the school district was making a $27 million investment approximately in each school, the city was then also investing approximately $2.7 million in infrastructure improvements, which included sidewalk improvements, ADA ramps, and approximately $1.5 million in housing rehabilitation. There was also a focused code enforcement effort in that 2-block area, and a focus of other city programs as well. Those impact zones then led to the creation of the East Village Growth Cell TIF district. The efforts associated with the impact zone led to this creation, which encompassed the impact zone area within the East Village Growth Cell TIF boundary. The TIF is comprised of approximately 2,475 parcels, with 61% of the buildings considered dilapidated and approximately 10% vacancies. It's about 50-50 owner and non-owner occupied. And the TIF was created as a mechanism to address neighborhood blight and aid in revitalizing the neighborhood. And just recently, within the last year, the city started a residential police officer program. There's currently 2 residential police officers in 2 different neighborhoods, and a third that's going to be going online soon. And residents are already seem to be noticing increased responsiveness to addressing crime issues, and a lot of the older neighborhoods, crime is a big concern from the residents. And so the East Village, the impact zone, the East Village Growth Cell TIF, all of that has worked together to lead to where we're at currently. LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, as the team lead, working with other team members, the city being one of them, was awarded $3 million from an Attorney General grant. The funds are part of the state's $70 million piece of the National Foreclosure Settlement negotiated by the state's Attorney General with some of the nation's largest banks in a result of the foreclosure crisis. The Peoria funds are going to be used to demolish 20 buildings, the construction and rehab of approximately 30 homes, and also housing counseling services will be provided through these funds. And that leads to recently the creation of the neighborhood wellness plan, and Joe's going to talk a bit more about it.
So one of the things, a lot of cities across the country have faced throughout the years has been because of the economy and the budget cuts we face. So from the city of Peoria perspective, everything Shannon talked about, we continue to evolve into how we deliver service to neighborhoods, from the impact zones to the TIF. It's kind of been an evolution to where we got to about 3 months ago. The city of Peoria the community development department worked together to craft a neighborhood wellness plan. So the neighborhood wellness plan says that, Peoria, like Springfield, is a large city, so different neighborhoods have different needs of what kind of services they need. One neighborhood, not better or worse service, different service. One neighborhood might need you to focus on demolitions because you have so many blighted structures in that area that it's not really fair to come in and ask one house to paint and fix their gutter when right next door the house needs to come down and it's boarded up and been boarded up and affecting your property value. In another neighborhood, maybe that one house on the block does need painted. So it's not better or worse service, it's a different level of service. And the reality we face is with limited resources, how do you spend those resources effectively within the neighborhoods of the city of Peoria? So we got together and we identified 10 different data points. They were mortgage lending, unemployment rate, owner-occupied rate, assessor property quality, EAV, median year build, vacancy rate, median household income, population change, and percentage of families in poverty. From those statistics, we identified 3 different areas in the city of Peoria. Essentially, and there's a couple maps up there for you to see, but this is kind of what the map came out to look like for us. So there's 3 identified areas when you cluster all those things together. And what we said is, what does each of those areas need in terms of city service being delivered? And a piece of that is from the code enforcement perspective. We have 7 code enforcement inspectors in the city of Peoria. Back in 2009, we had 13. So clearly going from 13 to 7, we've had to stretch ourselves pretty thin to get everything accomplished we want to accomplish. And with 7 code inspectors covering the geographical area of the entire city of Peoria, we weren't being effective at all. We were putting Band-Aids on every problem, and when we put one Band-Aid on one problem, another problem came up. So within this service level, in Area 1, we have a lot of vacant lots. So what we did is we came together and we took about 550 vacant lots that are within that area, and we put a contract out, and we proactively are cutting them every 2 weeks. So one of the big things in that area, because there are so many vacant lots, it's a simple thing, but just getting the grass cut every 2 weeks so they don't have to see a lot next door that's 3 feet in grass by the time the city gets out to cut it. So now we're going to have to cut those grass in about, when they're, it's 11, 12 inches as opposed to 2 or 3 feet. Also within that area, we've increased the demolitions we're doing. Historically, we've probably done 25 to 30 demolitions in that area. Our goal going forward is about 45 to 50 demolitions each year. So that's from the code enforcement perspective in Area 2. And Area 2 is kind of the older part of the city of Peoria. It's the older neighborhoods, are really our urban core that's kind of surrounding our Bradley University area, the east left TIF that she talked about. And in that area, we're really focusing on proactive code enforcement. We assigned 5 of the 7 code inspectors to that area, and we said, you need to go out, you need to be proactive. If someone's garage is falling down, you need to write them up. If they have peeling paint, you need to tell them they need to paint their house. If they're not taking care of their alley, you need to tell them to take care of their alley. In addition to that, we realize that people don't have the means necessarily sometimes to make those corrections, but who does have the means? And I probably, within the landlord community in Peoria, am not the most popular person, but we've really gone after the landlords the last 3 or 4 years in how we're delivering and what we expect of them. 3 or 4 years ago, the city of Peoria Every year we require properties to register with us annually. Per property, it's $50 every year per property. If you come to a training I put on every February, it's only $25. So I like to think that 1,300 landlords show up for my training every year just because of my engaging personality, but it's really that $25 incentive. But it's really an opportunity to get 1,300 landlords in front of me and for me to lecture them on how important it is to be a part of the neighborhood, to keep their property clean. We do 3 training sessions. It's a packed house, about 400 people each training session. We present information. The police department presents information. We've had eviction judges come in and tell the landlord how to present a good eviction case. We've had Prairie State Legal Services, who offers legal advice to low-income residents, come in and say, hey, if you don't want to see me in court, this is how you need to legally evict your tenant. These are the rights they have. We've had our police officers come in and talk about crime issues and how they can make their properties better by more lighting, rose bushes around the windows so people don't, if they want to look in your window, they're going to get thorns on them. So we've really forced the landlords to realize that they're running a business with their properties. They're getting income from these tenants, and they need to take care of them because they're really having a detrimental effect on our neighborhoods. And the other thing we realize is not all landlords are bad landlords. We have a lot of good landlords in Peoria, and it's a small percentage of ones that are causing the problems. So one of the other things we did about 2 months ago, in conjunction with the adoption of our neighborhood wellness plan, is we changed our nuisance ordinance. In the city of Peoria, we have a nuisance ordinance where if your property's had 2 or 3 major criminal acts within a year period, we declare you a nuisance property. If you don't evict your tenant, then we'll put a restriction where you can't rent that property for a year. So that's great for that one property, but we said that doesn't do anything to the landlord who has 7 properties who then moves his bad tenant to another property. So within that, we adopted a nuisance landlord ordinance. So what essentially we said, if you have 2 properties in the city of Peoria that we've declared a nuisance, a whole lot of things are going to kick in that you need to do. If we go through the court process and we declare you a nuisance landlord, we're going to require you to have a third-party home inspector inspect all your properties. We're going to make you do criminal background checks on all your new tenants. We're going to tell you you can't rent it out to anyone else who's been in a nuisance property. So not only are we focusing on landlords in general, we're really focusing on the bad landlords. And from the city staff that is kind of staffing that team is within the police department. It's our recently reorganized neighborhood service unit. Shannon briefly touched on the residential police officer program. Those residential police officers are housed in this unit. So that's 3 police officers living in the neighborhoods they're policing. So you have a neighborhood who, the police officers' duties that morning are to get up, patrol the neighborhood on foot, on a bike, do mini code enforcement sweeps with our code inspector. He's really the eyes and the ears of the neighborhood. The neighborhood residents have appreciated him, they trust him, they go to him, and it's really worked out very well in the two neighborhoods that they're currently in. We're trying to move a third one in. Also within that team, and this was a hard one for me to stomach, but we had 7 code inspectors, but we actually transferred a code inspector, one of my 7, down there, so now I only have 6 and they have 1. But when they have a property on their radar, then they work in conjunction with the code inspector to really hammer them. So if you're a nuisance landlord, you're going to clean up your property, you're going to paint your house, you're going to make sure your yard's cut. Otherwise, you're going to get it from both sides, the police standpoint and the code enforcement side. Also housed within that unit is a neighborhood development specialist. They handle kind of the neighborhood watch programs, the graffiti removal programs. So that's kind of all been tied in together with our wellness plan. So when we adopted a wellness plan, and then in the third area of town, it's kind of the northern part of town, new developments going, we really said, you know what, it's working up there. The city doesn't need to have a code inspector up there unless there's a complaint. We're going to step back and let the market drive what's going on up there, and it's really a complaint basis. We're really focusing on our older neighborhoods with this plan. And to be honest, it took a lot of leadership from our council to realize that this was a plan that's best for the city and not an individual neighborhood or an individual group. This is the best plan for the city. And we're only about 2 months in, and so I can't tell you, it's a great success, but we've been delivering code enforcement for the city of Peoria for a long time. and we haven't seen a ton of improvements of neighborhoods, especially with staffing cuts. So it's time we try something different, and this is our approach. But kind of tied all that together, we also realized, we have some staffing deficiencies within our department. When we all came together as 3 departments, we have about 38 people that make up those departments. The only 2 employees with any supervisory capabilities are me and the director, so we were spread a little thin because as the city staff that's here realizes every time you ever write someone a ticket in the city of Peoria, they always have a reason why they shouldn't get a ticket, and they want to talk to whoever wrote them that ticket's boss to try to get out of it. And it never works. If your grass is tall, your grass is tall, and you should have cut your grass. So I'm not very flexible when they want to talk, but you have to give them the respect and have that conversation with them. And explain to them why the grass needs to be cut, how they're not helping the neighborhood, what you can do next time so they don't get a ticket. But we are spread pretty thin. So one of the things we weren't delivering like we should with this wellness plan is really reaching out to the neighborhoods, asking the neighborhoods, hey, what do you think is wrong in your neighborhood? What can we do to help? What do you need to see as a coordination between multiple departments? We have this team now with the police department, but we still work hand in hand when they need a building inspector to go down, or there's a zoning enforcement issue, or if they're doing a sweep of a 30-unit apartment complex, one code inspector down there can't handle it, so we have to pull in our community development staff. So that's kind of the thought of why we brought on a neighborhood revitalization coordinator. That position's job description is to provide some field supervision to our code enforcement and building inspection staff in the field, because for whatever reason, somebody always wants to talk to someone's boss, regardless of if they don't agree with an employee, they want to talk to the boss. It's not always fair, I agree, because I back the employees up, they're right, but they want to talk to a boss, and now York can go out and meet with them and have those conversations. And then we also needed to find a way to coordinate, we figured out a way to coordinate within the community development department. Now we needed to figure a way to coordinate with all of the other departments in the city of Peoria, Public Works, the city manager's office, the police department, the fire department, and that's what this position does. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to York a little bit, and keep in mind he's been there about 2 months or so, it's a position, and we've never had the position before. I wrote the job description and posted it, so it's not something we based on anything, it's really based on what we identified as a need. So it's a position that's continually evolving. So I'm going to let him kind of talk about what he does on a day-to-day basis and what his observations on the position so far.
See if it works. Everybody hear me? Okay. Yeah, as Joe said, I've been in position a little over 2 months. And I'll tell you what, when they first told me what the job's going to be, the first week was kind of slow, and then they threw me in the deep end of the pool very soon after that. My day-to-day basis, I have to say I never did the same thing twice, 2 days in a row. From managing code enforcement to going out on building inspections to working with the police department and fire department, to meeting with neighborhood associations, to meeting with a simple resident who says, look, this is the problem that I've had this problem for 30 years, I don't know what to do about it, where do I need to go? It's kind of the catch-all, and as Joe also says, yeah, the supervisor who gets the phone call, if I'm not happy, I want to talk to so-and-so's boss, I get to field those wonderful calls on a daily basis. But this is really a proactive position, and that's the way it was presented from the beginning. This isn't a reactive position. So it's not a true administrative position where I'm sitting behind a desk. This is more of a proactive, let me get myself out in the field. I don't know if you can see, but they're all wearing nice dress shoes. I wear work boots because I never know what I'm going to be stepping in on a daily basis. So from the wellness plan, looking at the map, there are some problem areas, but we're trying to be proactive with it in a stance that hasn't been looked at before. The gentleman and the few ladies that we were eating a small dinner before we got here with and meeting with them, it's trying to change that mindset of the city getting behind you to help you as a resident. True, we want to make sure that we're enforcing code violations and building regulations to make sure everyone's safe, but we want to do it with a proactive that we're walking with you on this journey to improvement before a hammer just coming down on saying, fix this, do this. Because we acknowledge in the economic times that there are sometimes that there are violations that you don't have the money to fix. You might have a roof that's completely dilapidated and you're on a fixed income and you can't do anything about it. We want to make sure that we work with you, point you in the right direction to see where the city can help you get it talk to simply say, what's going to be the next step of this? It's been an empty lot for the next 30 years. What do we do with this? Or what are some things that can do? Neighborhood associations saying, okay, we want to do an environmental sweep of our neighborhood. We want to keep it clean. It's been clean. We want to keep the neighborhood looking nice. Can you send someone over to simply go street to street, up and down, house to house, and see what violations we might have, so we might address them in-house first before they ever get to me and say, okay, you're getting a ticket, I'll see you in court. And then working with other various departments throughout the city. As we said before, we have large nuisance properties, whether it be a hotel, motel, and excuse my point phrase, the Mosey Hotel, you know, that has various nuisance problems. Working with the police department, they go in and say, okay, we know that there's a criminal element behind it, but also let's look and see what code and building violations there are. So if it needs to come out, it comes out. Or we can talk to the owner and say, look, this has been a problem, it's continuing to be a problem. Either it gets fixed or we take care of it for you. But truly understanding the different areas of the city, the different problems that they have, and listening to the residents. The big thing of my position is it gives every resident in every neighborhood a voice. Whether that be you only need 5 minutes or you need 5 days to get something addressed, it gives that neighborhood an actual voice to get things listened to. So from meeting residents one-on-one to meeting with neighborhood associations, everybody has different problems, different struggles for different folk. But we want to make sure that we're adhering to them, whether you're on the north, south, east, or west end of Peoria. I'm hoping it gives a brief nutshell. My mind is always racing as I'm thinking about what are we going to do or what am I going to be doing tomorrow. But another aspect is working with the contractors that we have and making sure that they understand the city's vision of what we're trying to do. The city's arm can only reach so far. We have to have contractors come in and do a lot of different things for us, but we want to make sure that they're adhering to our expectations and to adhering to the residents' expectations, so that whether it be the county's problem or public works or code enforcement or building inspections, that we're all collectively working together, because that's the way residents see it. You don't see it as, oh, this is a public works problem, this is a code enforcement problem, this is a city problem. And that's the way we have to present it, as one unified team, that we're all trying to work together to try to get that problems, find solutions for that problem.
And one of the questions that kind of preparing us for tonight, they asked us, you know, how did the position get funded? How did we convince someone to hire it? How did you go about to get this position? And to be honest, I mean, I can't give you some magical answer that said we got this grant or we did this or we did this not. To be honest, you know, we have in the city of Peoria a very strong visionary of a city manager who understands the importance of neighborhoods, and he believes in neighborhoods. And as staff, when we went to the city manager and we said, you know, this is a position we need, this is a position the neighborhood want, he said, absolutely, it's a great idea, let's make it happen. And the council, you know, the way the city is Peoria is set up is there's 5 at-large council members, and then 5 district council persons and a mayor. And so all of those council people really believe in neighborhood and really realize the importance of neighborhoods, and whether you're in an older neighborhood, a newer neighborhood, a neighborhood with a different economic class, you know, that's your home, that's where you belong, and you deserve to live in a neighborhood that doesn't have code violations, that doesn't have crime issues, and while we can't wave a magic wand, and the city of Peoria can't fix all your problems, we also don't want to tell you it's not important. We might not be able to get every house to be compliant. We might not be able to do anything. There's areas we fall short on every day. You know, we wish we had more services. We wish we could do things better sometimes. We have codes and regulations, but we still realize the importance of that. So kind of within the wellness plan and the adoption of it, you know, the first major step 2 months ago, you know, what we told our city council was, this is a plan that's going to take 4 or 5 years. It's not a plan that we're just going to do tomorrow and everything's going to be great. It's a 4 or 5, you know, year down the road deliverable plan. The first stage was code enforcement and our neighborhood and grants function. You know, we're focusing a lot of our CDBG grants and our home grants in that area too of the older neighborhoods. We're really working on rebuilding those urban older neighborhoods, and that's what we're using the code enforcement and the neighborhood program for. And the next stage we're still developing is our economic development function of what, within our economic development division, what service are we going to deliver to that area? And with that, I'm going to kind of hand it over to Eric to talk a little bit about, you know, the economic development division and how it relates to neighborhoods.
So when we did the wellness plan, the economic development department obviously works more with businesses than residents and neighborhoods, but we saw this plan too as an opportunity to kind of look at our overall structure, look at our funds, and see how we can target these funds to really make the most impact. We kind of look at it, the green area at the top, that those are going to be the big box stores coming in on a cornfield. Well, we have limited funds, so we want to spend our funds and our time on helping a cornfield turn into a business. Obviously, that's important, but that's way more market driven than staff driven. So when we look into the yellow transitional areas where we have our neighborhood commercial corridors, so what we did in the last few months, we've been out to 3 of those corridors. 2 of the corridors have maybe 100 businesses, and one of them has maybe just 15 or 20. But we go, we knock on those doors, invite people to a meeting, really just get everybody all the business owners into a room and say, what do you guys want? And the city's part in that is really on the front end. We get everybody together, we send out the notices, and then once you get in a group, smaller than this, but similar style to this, the city says, all right, here you guys all are. A leader naturally emerges, and from then on, the city becomes a support role. We'll go to the meetings, we'll help out where we can. They may say, we want to put up banners. We help us so we can help install the banners, pick out your idea, draw something up. And it really kind of gets the commercial corridor kind of a brand, if you will. And it also kind of ties into the neighborhood, where usually they come out with a name that's similar to the neighborhood association near them. And it really can kind of grow a business corridor that maybe, there may be some vacant properties here and there, and they can kind of come together and say, well, we really need a little sub shop here, or we need a grocery store, or we need a hardware store. And I think before we've been having these meetings, the business owners, they're so busy, and they say hi to their neighbor, but they don't sit and all talk and say, well, how do we make each of our businesses grow? So the city's role in that is, like I said, on the front end, and then we just kind of let them go and let them form a business association if they want. Some of them are more informal and just meet once a month at 9 o'clock in the morning at a bar and have a drink and talk about what's going to happen. So, and then also, like I said, with the limited funds, we're focusing on the red and the green, or red and yellow areas here, where the areas that do need our time and support. And if there's going to be development in one of those areas, Shannon and I have been working since March on a property that, the property owners probably never dreamed somebody wanted to go there, so they have no idea how a real estate transaction goes. They just own one property, they don't have a lawyer, so we help as much as we can without saying, you need to get a lawyer, but little things like that where, in a cornfield, that property owner is going to have all their ducks in a row and be ready for that development, but in the older commercial corridors, it's really where our support goes a long way.
And I'm going to let Shannon kind of talk about this a little further. Within the AG grant, so the Attorney General grant we got gave us $3 million for within the TIF. It's our East Bluff. It's an older neighborhood. It struggled with some crime issues. However, one of the greatest things is the local school district just built a brand new school there. It's a beautiful school in the middle of this older neighborhood. So there is some potential momentum in that neighborhood, and so within right down the middle of that neighborhood, there's a fairly busy street that has a few commercial properties. It's kind of teetering on the edge of commercial for some vacant properties. And I'll let kind of Shannon talk about the Wisconsin Business Corridor a little further.
So the city hired a local firm to create a plan for the Wisconsin Avenue Business Corridor, which is in the middle of the East Bluff, which is an older neighborhood. And while there's some long-standing, strong businesses, there's also struggling businesses, there's also vacant structures, boarded buildings. And so this has been, a fun project to work on, but also an opportunity to do things a little bit differently when it comes to planning. And instead of creating a 50-page document that after a bit of time sits on the shelf, we're doing this differently. We're creating one poster, 24 by 36 size, that everything that implementation, everything that's going to occur as part of the plan is on this one poster. And the idea is that the poster will be displayed throughout the corridor in the business windows and the vacant building windows, so that the vision is out there on a continual basis, and that people can come alongside and see what the future for the corridor is, what the business owners and residents want to see in that area. And the process that we used for this plan was we did two stakeholder engagement. The first one being that we went to all the businesses on the corridor with the district council member, myself, and the staff of Farnsworth, and met with each business owner, asked them just a few questions, and really just had a dialogue with them of what some of the issues are, what they would like to see, what they like about being in the district. And then the second stakeholder engagement was a public meeting where we had neighborhood residents, businesses, anybody that, organizations that have a vested interest in the neighborhood attend. We put maps in front of them, and we had them actually write on the map what they would like to see, where they would like to see it, and all of that is being pulled into this, what will be one poster when it's approved in a month or so.
So kind of, that's our presentation, and our next plan is to kind of open up for questions, but, you know, like I said, you know, a lot of these things we're 2 or 3 months into, we're on the first stages of them. We're excited for what the future might bring. We're hopeful. I'm sure you all are hopeful. We're hoping, you know, this works. I hope to come back and see you guys in 3 or 4 years and tell you all the success we've had. We've had a lot of little success with what we've seen and how we're delivering things. The Attorney General grant we got was I believe we were able to get that grant because we had a focused area, we had the neighborhood organizations in place, the other nonprofit groups in place to put together a very strong application to the state of Illinois Attorney General to say, these are the stakeholders we have, this is the plan we have in place, this is the TIF we've been working on, this is the impact zone we're working on, this is the next stage in that evolution. So I think that's a success we're looking. And within that Attorney General grant, you know, one of the major pieces of it is we have about $1 million to fund 14 owner-occupied structures, single-family dwellings within the East Bluff. We're looking to put all 14 of those on vacant lots, so all of those 14 houses will generate TIF increment and hopefully build that going forward. We also petitioned the state. We asked them, hey, we're applying for this grant. We want to go up to 150% area median income. We're trying to, you know, bring back some of the middle class people to some of the older neighborhoods to really diversify the income. So you know, it's not an area facing, you know, poverty or high. They're making high income. We're really looking at just to form a neighborhood, and that's made up of everyone. Because the other piece of that grant, you know, we go down to about 30% of the AMI. So it really diversifies the whole neighborhood and allows us to really create a neighborhood within the East Bluff that we're excited for. We're hoping to kind of get construction going on that in the next 6 or 7 months on those pieces, and then also the rental piece of it. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Carol.